Based on this story, we will learn about narcissistic injury. Most people think a narcissist's greatest fear is being unloved. It isn't. Their greatest fear is being seen. When you strip away their carefully constructed mask of competence and reveal the trembling child beneath, they don't just get angry, they disintegrate. My brother thought he was the king of our empire because he wore the crown. He forgot that I was the one who built the throne. And he certainly forgot that when you strike a king, you must kill him. He didn't. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The fog outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Sterling-Vane boardroom was thick enough to chew on. It pressed against the glass, a wall of gray wool isolating us from the rest of Seattle. Inside, the air smelled of stale espresso and the ozone tang of a laser printer that had been working too hard. Preston sat at the head of the mahogany table, his fingers steepled. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at a point somewhere near my left ear, wearing the expression of a man forced to put down a beloved family dog. "It's a restructuring, Audrey," he said, his voice dropping an octave to that serious CEO baritone he'd practiced in front of a mirror. "The board, we feel the operational redundancy is hurting our agility." I didn't blink. I watched the way his throat bobbed when he swallowed. He was terrified. "Redundancy," I repeated, tasting the word. It felt dry. "I built the operational framework for the Cascades property. I negotiated the union contracts for the Vane acquisition. I am the chief operating officer, Preston. Who is redundant?" "It's not about performance," he said quickly. Too quickly. He slid a thick manila envelope across the polished wood. It stopped 3 inches from my hand. "It's about vision and, frankly, your stress levels. We're worried about you." "Diane is worried about you." Diane, not Mom. He was bringing in the heavy artillery. I looked at the envelope. I didn't need to open it to know it contained a check with too many zeros and a non-disclosure agreement thicker than a Bible. He was trying to buy my silence before I even knew what I was supposed to be quiet about. "You're firing me," I said, leaning back in the Herman Miller chair, "because you need my shares." "I don't need your shares," he scoffed a little too loudly. "This is for your health. Take a sabbatical. Go to the vineyard. Just sign the papers, Aud. Don't make this ugly." I looked at him, really looked at him. The bespoke suit that hid the soft waistline, the manicured nails, the eyes that shifted like a cornered rat. He wasn't doing this for the company. He was doing this because he had broken something expensive, and he needed me out of the room before I found the pieces. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator, realizing the cage door was unlocked. "Okay," I said softly. Preston blinked. "Okay, I'll pack my things." I stood up. I didn't touch the envelope. I saw the panic flare in his eyes. He needed my signature, not my compliance. He needed the NDA. "Audrey, wait, the paperwork." "Mail it," I said, and walked out. Why was he so desperate for me to sign today? Security was waiting. Of course they were. It was Jerry, the head of loss prevention, a man I had hired 5 years ago because he was discreet and had a mortgage that kept him loyal. He couldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the elevator numbers as they ticked down, his beefy hands clasped in front of him like a pallbearer. "I'm sorry, Miss Sterling," he mumbled. "Mr. Sterling said it was immediate effect." "It's fine, Jerry," I said, adjusting the strap of my Birkin bag. The leather felt cool and substantial under my fingers. "He's the CEO. You follow orders." He said, "I have to escort you to the curb. No stops at your office." Standard protocol for a hostile termination, I noted. The elevator dinged. The lobby was a cavern of marble and hushed conversations. As we walked toward the revolving doors, I could feel the eyes of the reception staff burning into my back. They knew. In this building, information traveled faster than light. I stepped out into the biting cold. The drizzle was immediate, misting my hair. I turned and looked up at the 42nd floor. I couldn't see him, but I knew he was watching. He would be pressing his forehead against the glass, waiting for me to cry, to scream, to make a scene that would justify his narrative of my instability. I pulled out my phone. My fingers were steady. I typed one word, checkmate. I hit send. I didn't have a plan yet, But I knew Preston. If I told him he had already lost, he would spend the next week tearing his own kingdom apart trying to figure out how. What did he think I had on him? Sex 1.5. Was a glass box suspended over the Puget Sound. It was minimalist, expensive, and currently echoing with the sound of my phone vibrating against the quartz countertop. Preston, Preston, Preston. Mother, Preston. I poured a glass of Sancerre, crisp, acidic, perfect, and watched the screen light up again. He was spiraling. 2 hours of silence from me, and he was already cracking. He expected a fight. He expected me to storm back in with a lawyer screaming about bylaws. By doing nothing, I was denying him the friction he needed to feel in control. I took a sip of wine. The silence in the apartment wasn't lonely. It was strategic. I walked to the window. The ferry boats were cutting white lines across the dark water. Preston thought the company was the buildings, the land, the assets. He thought that by taking my key card, he had locked me out. He forgot that the Sterling-Vane Collection wasn't built on real estate. It was built on relationships. It was built on the terrifying amount of leverage I held over the city's zoning board, the unions, and the suppliers. He fired the architect and decided to live in the house. I let the phone ring until it went to voicemail. Then I turned it off. Let him sweat in the dark. I opened my personal laptop, a matte black machine that had never touched the company network. Or so IT thought. 3 years ago, when Preston had insisted on modernizing our cybersecurity with a vendor who happened to be his fraternity brother, I had installed a kernel-level monitor. Not to spy, just to verify. Trust, but verify. I pulled up the terminal. Green text scrolled against a black background. Accessing Shadow Volume 4. Bypassing Admin P. Sterling. Success. I wasn't looking for emails. Emails could be deleted. I was looking for metadata. I scrolled through the logs of his activity for the last 6 months. It was a mess of incompetence. Late approvals, ignored compliance flags, hours spent on luxury car configurators. But then I saw it, a recurring transfer of data to an external server. Not a corporate cloud, a private one. Destination, Aura Ventures LLC. Aura. The virtual reality startup he'd been babbling about at Christmas dinner. The future of hospitality, he'd called it. I had laughed at him then. I wasn't laughing now. He was moving company proprietary data, guest lists, spending habits, whale profiles, to a failing startup. But that wasn't enough to fire me. That was a slap on the wrist. He needed capital. Real capital. I dug deeper into the file structures. There was a folder created 2 weeks ago. Project Cliffside. My stomach tightened. Cliffside was the code name for the Olympic Peninsula property, our crown jewel, the one Dad made us swear never to sell. Is he selling the legacy to fund his toy? I turned my phone back on the next morning. The battery had drained 10% just from the missed notifications. One voicemail stood out. Audrey. My mother's voice was breathy, laced with that distinct cocktail of Xanax and denial. Preston told me what happened. Oh, honey, I know you've been unwell. The stress. He did this because he loves you. We just want you to get help. Please don't do anything rash. We can look at treatment centers in Arizona. The warm air is so healing. I put the phone down on the kitchen island, feeling the cold marble seep into my forearms. He was good. I had to give him that. He had weaponized her anxiety. If I fought him, I wasn't a wronged executive. I was a mentally unstable daughter lashing out at her benevolent brother. Unwell, I whispered to the empty room. I walked to the mirror in the hallway. I looked tired, yes. My skin was pale, but my eyes were sharp. They were gaslighting me. They were building a cage out of concern so they could lock me away while they dismantled everything I had built. If I tried to defend myself to Mom, I'd sound defensive. Crazy. So I wouldn't defend. I would attack. I didn't call her back. I spent the next 48 hours living inside the data. I ordered Thai food and ate it cold from the carton, my eyes burning from the blue light. The Cliffside folder was encrypted. but Preston used the same password for everything. The name of his first dog followed by his birth year. Baxter, 1985. The file opened. It wasn't a sale. It was worse. It was a leveraged loan, a high-interest, short-term bridge loan from a private equity firm known for predatory restructuring. He had put the Olympic Peninsula property up as collateral for a $40 million cash injection into Aura Ventures. And here was the kicker. The loan agreement had a key man clause. It required Preston to remain CEO. If he was removed, the loan was called immediately. But there was also a bad actor clause. If any executive officer was found to have committed gross negligence or corporate espionage, the lender could seize equity. That's why he framed me. He needed to trigger a clause to get a lower interest rate? No. He needed to fire me for cause so that I couldn't vote my shares to block the loan. The bylaws stated that an officer under investigation for espionage lost their voting rights during the inquiry. He didn't just fire me, he disenfranchised me. He had bet the family farm on a VR headset, and he had cut my throat to sign the check. Sex, 1.5. Marcus met me at a dive bar in Pioneer Square. It smelled of sawdust and stale beer, the kind of place where lawyers went when they didn't want to be billed. Marcus was 60, wore suits that cost more than my car, and had a heart made of anthracite. He listened to my story without touching his scotch. He blocked your vote, Marcus said, summarizing 20 minutes of my explanation in 4 words. Yes, under Article 9 of the trust. And he's accusing you of what, exactly? Corporate espionage. He planted files on my work drive. I saw the transfer logs. He did it from his own admin account, the idiot, but he'll claim I stole his credentials. Marcus swirled his drink. If we sue for wrongful termination, we're in court for 3 years. The loan defaults by then. The hotel is gone. You get a settlement, but the legacy is ash. I don't want a settlement, Marcus. He looked at me over the rim of his glasses. What do you want? I want to trigger the default, I said. Marcus froze. Excuse me? The loan has a covenant. If the valuation of the collateral drops by more than 15%, the bank can call the loan. If the loan is called, Preston can't pay. He goes bankrupt. The shares revert to the trust. I buy them for pennies. You want to tank your own company's stock? I want to burn the field to kill the weeds, I said. Can you draft a tender offer? Something low, insulting, just to spook the market. Marcus smiled. It was a terrifying sight. I'll have it ready by Monday. Can I really destroy the village to save it? The article dropped on Thursday. The Seattle Chronicle, page 6. Trouble in Paradise. Sterling heiress ousted amidst substance abuse rumors. The photo was from a Christmas party 3 years ago where I had tripped on a rug. In the freeze frame, I looked disheveled, my eyes half closed, drunk. The text was a masterpiece of anonymous sources. Insiders say Audrey Sterling's behavior had become erratic, missing meetings, concerns for her well-being. I sat at my kitchen island, reading it on my tablet. The rage started in my stomach, a cold, hard knot. He was systematically dismantling my reputation. He knew that if I tried to raise capital to buy him out, no bank would touch a drug-addled executive. He wasn't just firing me, he was unemploying me, forever. I walked to the wine fridge. I hesitated. If I drink this, does it make the article true? I grabbed a bottle of sparkling water instead. I opened it with a violent hiss. Okay, Preston, I said to the empty room. You want to play dirty? Let's play dirty. He thought public opinion mattered. He forgot that our guests didn't read page 6. They cared about 800 thread count sheets and whether the concierge could get them a table at Canlis. I didn't need the public. I needed the staff. I picked up my burner phone, a relic from my days negotiating with construction unions who preferred untraceable conversations. I dialed Marco. He ran the linen service that supplied every high-end hotel in the Pacific Northwest. He had been the best man at my wedding. He was also the man whose business I had saved during the pandemic by paying 2 years in advance. Audrey? His voice was wary. He'd read the article. Hello, Marco. How's the family?" "Good, good. Look, Audrey, about the news. Fake news, Marco. You know that. I assumed. I need a favor. Audrey, I have a contract with Sterling-Vane. I don't want you to break the contract," I interrupted. "I just want you to adhere to the strictest interpretation of the Quality Control Clause, Section 4, Paragraph B." Silence on the line. He knew the clause. It stated that any linen with a thread count variance of more than 0.5% had to be rejected and hand inspected. It would slow down deliveries by weeks. That would cause a significant backlog, Marco said carefully. The hotels would be running on reserve stock within days. Guests would notice. "Yes," I said, "they would. Preston will scream. Preston doesn't know how to read a linen contract. He'll blame the wash cycle." A pause. Then a chuckle. "Section 4, Paragraph B. Got it. Anything else?" "Call Jean-Luc at the produce warehouse. Tell him I'm craving truffles. All of them." I hung up. By Monday, the sheets would be rough and the menu would be missing its signature dishes. The facade of perfection was about to crack. How long before the TripAdvisor reviews tanked? Sex, 1.5. The invitation arrived by courier. The Winter Solstice Gala, revealed in Ever Mission. The Winters of Seattle Arts Council, hosted by Preston Sterling. It was a taunt. He sent it to my apartment knowing I wouldn't come, knowing I couldn't come. To show up after being fired, after the drug rumors, would be social suicide. It was his victory lap. I ran my thumb over the heavy cream cardstock, embossed gold lettering. Tacky. He expected me to stay home, hiding in the dark, ashamed of the mess he'd painted on me. I walked to my closet. I pushed past the black blazers, past the navy power suits, past the beige cashmere. I stopped at the back. A dress I had bought in Milan 5 years ago and never worn. It was red, not polite burgundy, not subtle crimson. It was the color of a fresh arterial wound. Backless, structural, dangerous. I pulled it out. The silk slipped through my fingers like water. If I went, everyone would stare. They would whisper. They would look for the shakes in my hands, the dilation in my pupils. Let them look. I wasn't going to the gala to clear my name. I was going to remind Preston that ghosts don't stay buried just because you shovel dirt on them. I held the dress up to the mirror. "See you tonight, brother." The ballroom smelled of lilies and desperation. I liked the links to teaching pause. The ballroom smelled of lady and fakerdly. I put it so practically, the pause and similar together. The ballroom smelled of lady and fakerdly. It was a scent I knew well, the sharp, cloying fragrance of 1,000 flowers trying to mask the smell of old money sweating under stage lights. I stood at the top of the grand staircase. The red dress felt like armor against my skin. It was backless, exposing the spine my brother thought he had broken. The murmur of the crowd died down, rippling outward from the entrance like a stone dropped in a pond. Heads turned. Glasses of champagne lowered. I saw Diane near the ice sculpture, her hand flying to her mouth. She looked at me not with pride, but with the horror of someone seeing a corpse walk into a wedding. Preston was holding court near the podium, laughing at a joke made by a venture capitalist he needed to impress. He turned slowly, sensing the shift in the room's gravity. His smile didn't just fade, it curdled. For a split second, the mask slipped, and I saw the terrified boy who used to hide behind my legs when Dad raised his voice. He looked at my dress, then at the whispers spreading like wildfire. I descended the stairs. 1 step. 2. He couldn't have me removed. Not here, not in front of the donors. That would be unstable. "Good evening," I said to a board member as I passed, my voice steady, my pulse hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I wasn't just attending a party. I was walking into the lion's den wearing a stake. Does he know I can see him sweating from here? Hashtag sex 1.5. I found him near the bar, cornered by the CFO. Maybe why for treatment into a clout m'avait years of the party. I found him near the bar, cornered by the CFO. I found him near the bar, cornered by the CFO. Maybe wire for treatment into a clat of years of the party. I found him near the bar, cornered by the logistics firm. Preston was clutching a scotch like a lifeline. "Preston," I said. My voice was low, intimate, a sister greeting her brother. He flinched. "Audrey, I didn't think you'd be up for this, considering." "Considering what? The rumors?" I picked up a glass of sparkling water, ignoring the champagne. "People will believe anything, won't they? Like the rumor that Aura Ventures is soliciting a bridge loan using our flagship property as collateral." The color drained from his face so fast it was almost impressive. He looked around wildly, checking if anyone was within earshot. "Keep your voice down," he hissed, the charm replaced by a reptilian menace. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I?" The key man clause in the term sheet was restrictive, don't you think? $40 million is a lot of money to bet on a VR headset that gives people motion sickness. He stepped closer, invading my personal space. It was a power move, designed to make me step back. I didn't move. "You're legally exposed, Audrey. If you leak proprietary data, I will bury you. I have lawyers who will make your life a living hell." "I'm not leaking anything," I said, smiling sweetly. "I'm just making conversation. But tell me, do the investors know about the coastal erosion report, or did you bury that with the skeletons?" He froze. His glass tilted. Amber liquid sloshed over the rim, staining his white cuff. "You wouldn't," he breathed. "Enjoy the party, Preston." I walked away, feeling his gaze boring into my back. He wasn't thinking about the gala anymore. He was thinking about how to kill me. That was at the Four Seasons. Preston was hosting the partners from Highland Equity, the sharks holding the debt on Aura. I walked in at 8:05 a.m. I wasn't invited. I pulled out the chair directly across from Preston and sat down. "So, yeah, sorry I'm late," I said, signaling the waiter for coffee. The room went silent. The three men in suits looked from me to Preston. Preston looked like he was having a stroke. "This is a private meeting," Preston choked out. "Audrey, you need to leave." "Nonsense," I said, unfolding my napkin. "I'm a shareholder, and since we're discussing the future of the Sterling-Vane assets, I thought I should be here. Unless, this isn't about Sterling-Vane? Is this about Aura?" I looked at the lead investor, a man named Sterling. No relation, just irony. "Preston tells me you're very excited about the hospitality integration. It's so brave. Leveraging a 100-year-old hotel brand for a tech startup. Very 2021. Preston stood up. "Audrey, get out. Now." "Sit down, Preston," the investor said. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of a bank vault closing. He looked at me. "Miss Sterling, what do you mean, brave?" "Well," I said, buttering a croissant, "given the pending litigation regarding the property's environmental stability, putting it up as collateral seems optimistic." Preston slammed his hand on the table. "There is no litigation." "Not yet," I corrected, "but when the EPA report drops next week, well." I took a bite of the croissant. It was flaky, buttery, and tasted like victory. Preston was vibrating. He couldn't scream at me in front of the money. He had to sit there and watch me dismantle his deal, one pastry flake at a time. How much pain can he swallow before he chokes? Sex, 1.5. The report hit the Seattle Times on Tuesday. When he did it with was considered sinking feeling. Sterling-Vane flagship property at risk of catastrophic erosion. It wasn't a leak from me, not directly. I had simply, accidentally, forwarded an old geological survey to an environmental watchdog group 3 days ago. They did the rest. The article quoted independent experts who claimed the cliffside foundations were unstable. It was an exaggeration. The foundations were fine for another 50 years. But markets hate uncertainty, and lenders hate risk. I sat in my living room watching the business news. Shares of Sterling-Vane plummeted 12% this morning, the anchor said, looking grave. Rumors of a liquidity crisis are swirling following the withdrawal of a key investment offer. Highland Equity had pulled the plug. The loan was dead. Preston was now sitting on a failing startup with no cash, a tanking stock price, and a board of directors who were suddenly asking very pointed questions about his vision. My phone rang. It was Marcus. "The tender offer is ready," he said. "With the stock at this price, you can pick up a controlling interest for, well, it's a fire sale, Audrey." "Not yet," I said. "Let him bleed a little more." "Audrey, be careful. A wounded animal bites." "I'm counting on it." I hung up. I needed him to do something desperate. I needed him to cross the line from incompetence to criminality. What will he do when he realizes the walls are closing in? Wednesday was a bloodbath. The stock hit a 5-year low. The linen shortage had hit the reviews. Scratchy sheets, no towels, waited 2 hours for room service. The brand damage was compounding the financial panic. I watched the ticker on my laptop. Every point it dropped was $1 million of our family's net worth vanishing. I should have felt sick. Instead, I felt a cold, clinical satisfaction. I was amputating a limb to save the body. I logged into the admin console. Preston still hadn't changed the passwords. He was too busy putting out fires to check the locks. He was liquidating assets, fast. He was selling off the company fleet, the art collection, the wine cellar. He was trying to raise cash to cover the Aura payroll. He was stripping the company for parts. And then I saw the email draft. To the board. Subject: restructuring proposal. Content: recommendation to sell the Vane property to a private consortium. He was going to sell the second hotel, without a vote. No, I whispered. He was going to burn it all down rather than admit he failed. I had to move. Now. Sex. The banging on my door started at 2 a.m. "Audrey, open the damn door." It was Preston. He sounded drunk. Or manic. Probably both. I checked the security camera feed. He was alone, disheveled, tie undone. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. I pressed record on my phone and slipped it into my pocket. I opened the door. He pushed past me, stumbling into the foyer. "You did this," he spat, spinning around to face me. "You leaked the report. You tanked the deal." "I protected the asset," I said calmly. "Something you forgot to do." "I am the CEO," he screamed, his voice cracked. "I am the vision. You're just the mechanic. You fix the plumbing. You don't build the house." "You're not building a house, Preston. You're gambling the mortgage." He grabbed my shoulders. His fingers dug in, painful and hard. "You're going to fix this. You're going to call Marcus. You're going to issue a statement saying the report was a mistake. Or I swear to God, Audrey, I will ruin you. I will plant enough evidence on your laptop to send you to federal prison." "Like you planted the espionage files?" I asked softly. He sneered. "Exactly. Who are they going to believe? The CEO or the junkie sister?" I looked at his hands on my shoulders, then up at his eyes. "Get your hands off me." He shoved me back. I stumbled, but didn't fall. "Fix it," he roared, and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass rattled. I reached into my pocket and stopped the recording. "Gotcha," I whispered. Sex 1.5. The emergency board meeting was held on Zoom. It was invited, but as a major shareholder, I had a right to attend the open session. Preston was on screen, sitting in the boardroom. He looked better, showered, shaved. The mask was back on. "The market volatility is temporary," he was saying, using his smooth, reassuring voice. "The sale of the Vane property will inject necessary liquidity and allow us to pivot." "Mr. Chairman," I said, unmuting myself. Preston froze. "Audrey, you are not recognized." "I have a point of order," I said. "Article 12, a motion of no confidence." The screen was a grid of shocked faces. "This is ridiculous," Preston laughed, a nervous barking sound. "She's a disgruntled former employee. She's unwell." "I am a shareholder with 40% of the voting stock," I said, "and I am bringing new evidence to the board regarding the CEO's conduct." "Mute her," Preston shouted at the IT admin. If you mute me, I said quickly, I send the recording of Preston threatening to frame me for federal crimes to the SEC and the Seattle Times. Silence. Absolute, terrified silence. The chairman of the board, a man named Arthur who had known our father, leaned into his camera. Let her speak. I shared my screen. First, the transfer logs showing Preston moving company data to Aura. Second, the loan documents with the bad actor clause. Third, the audio file from last night. Preston's voice filled the digital room, clear and undeniable. I will plant enough evidence on your laptop to send you to federal prison. I stopped the playback. Preston Sterling is not just incompetent, I said, my voice cold. He is a liability. He has committed fraud, he has threatened a shareholder, and he has triggered the default clauses in his own secret loans. Preston was silent. He was staring at the camera, his face a mask of pure hatred. He didn't look ashamed. He looked annoyed, like I was a fly he hadn't swatted hard enough. This is a deep fake, he said. Technology these days, it's amazing what you can do. It's not a deep fake, Preston, Arthur said. We can hear you. I'm the only reason this company exists, Preston yelled. She's a bean counter. She has no soul. The motion on the floor is the removal of Preston Sterling as CEO, Arthur said. All in favor? The vote was not unanimous. Preston's frat brothers on the board voted to keep him. But the old guard, the ones who remembered Dad, the ones who cared about the dividends, they flipped. The motion carries, Arthur said. Preston, your access is revoked, effective immediately. Preston stood up. He adjusted his tie. He didn't look defeated, he looked bored. Fine, he said. You want it? Take it. It's a sinking ship anyway. I'm better than this. Aura is going to be a unicorn. You'll see. You'll all be begging me to buy you out in a year. He looked at the camera lens, directly at me. You didn't win, Audrey. You just caught the grenade I threw. The screen went black. He didn't understand. I didn't want the grenade. I wanted the pin. I walked into the building an hour later. Jerry was waiting. He looked relieved. Welcome back, Ms. Sterling. Thank you, Jerry. Is he gone? He's clearing his desk. I took the elevator up. The 42nd floor was quiet. The staff wouldn't meet my eyes. They were terrified of the purge that usually followed a coup. I walked into the CEO's office. Preston was shoving things into a box, a silver picture frame, a stapler. He didn't look up. You know, he said, Mom is never going to forgive you. I know, I said. She thinks you're cruel. I am. He laughed, a short, bitter sound. He picked up his box. He walked past me, stopping at the door. You're going to be so lonely in here, he said. I prefer the quiet. He left. I watched him go. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I felt clean. I walked to the desk. I sat down in the Herman Miller chair. It was still warm from his body. I picked up the phone. Jerry, this is Audrey. Reactivate my credentials. And call Marco. Tell him we need fresh linens. Tonight. I hung up. I swiveled the chair to look out at the fog. The city was gray and cold and beautiful. It was mine. Lesson learned. The narcissistic injury. In this story, we watched Preston spiral, not because he lost money, but because he lost control of the narrative. This is the core of narcissistic injury. A narcissist constructs a false self, a grandiose, impenetrable image, the visionary, the king. When reality contradicts this image, Audrey's competence, the failed loan, they don't experience it as a mistake. They experience it as an existential threat. Preston didn't fire Audrey because she was bad at her job. He fired her because her competence was a mirror reflecting his own inadequacy. The injury occurs when the mirror refuses to break. Audrey's refusal to be the victim, her smile, her silence, her red dress, denied him the emotional reaction he needed to fuel his superiority. When you deal with a narcissist, remember, you cannot win by playing their game. You win by refusing to be a player. You win by becoming the reality they cannot manipulate. He didn't lose because I was smarter. He lost because he couldn't imagine a world where he wasn't the smartest person in the room. And that blindness is the only vulnerability you need. This story resonated with you, but also Competitor 1002 from your mind. His traditional and making certain and speakered on this today. If this story resonated with you, he ready? Share with yourself. He went to leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.